So they finally did it. Team Cherry have at long last given us a release date for Silksong, September the 4th, 2025. At the time of recording, less than 2 weeks away. That's 3 years since Xbox implied it was coming out in the next 12 months, 6 years since the first trailer, and 8.5 years since Hollow Knight itself was released. All in all, a pretty long wait. And in that time, I'm sure we've all had a jolly good think about what we would like from a successful successor. So I thought, as one last Hollow Knight swan song before Silksong, I'd take a look back at what I would like to carry over from the original into the sequel, places I'd maybe appreciate a little improvement, and a few new things as a wish list too. If you want to see what Silksong is like before you grab the game for yourself, or you'd like a place to come share your experience of the game, or are in need of a place to chill out with some friends, I'll be streaming the game from launch here on YouTube and also over on my Twitch channel. So subscribe here and or check the link in the description to follow me on Twitch. I'm Hill. I've got over 1200 hours in Hollow Knight and I'm incredibly excited for the sequel. So here are the 8 things I would like to see in Silksong. I love White Palace. I loved it in my first playthrough, and I've ran through it probably hundreds of times since, and still love zipping through with all the tricks and shortcuts I've learned and developed over time. Other than that one mega gauntlet for half the King Soul towards the end of the game, there really isn't any other places that give you that same lengthened movement-based challenge. There's a few micro-challenges here and there, usually for a Mask Shard, Charm Notch or other similar collectible, but never a longer section that's a test of the player's traversal prowess. The laser gauntlet on the way to Crystal Heart is exactly the sort of thing that I mean, perhaps just maybe 50% longer than that. So for Silksong, I'd want to see more of them. We can tell by the trailers and from how Hornet is portrayed in the first game that she is very mobile. Her grapple needle specifically opens up a huge potential for movement challenges. I wouldn't want the sections to be screens that are constantly retread, I'm looking at you, bottom of Queen's Gardens, but just a couple more on the way to collectibles and unlocks would be marvellous. Some of my favourite moments in Hollow Knight came from its excellent use of NPCs. Quirrell, Hornet and Cloth are standouts, but of course there's Zoe and even Tiso as well. The thing about them that sticks with me the most is their tangible impact on the knight's journey. They are not just expositors that you bump into at random. Their stories weave into the narrative and they are involved physically in what takes place. Cloth in particular is my favourite, her story culminating in facing off against Traitor Lord alongside the protagonist and delivering a heroic and tragic final blow. For Silksong then, pretty much more of the same. A Team Cherry version of Patches would be ace, although Hornet might just give him a crack across the chops. It's absolutely no question that some of the best and most difficult bosses lie at the end of Hollow Knight. Sisters of Battle, Nightmare King Grim, Absolute Radiance and Pure Vessel are all accessed very close to or after the culmination of the game's main story. And not to disparage the Pantheons, but I would have loved it if they were given their own space in the main part of the game. NKG's quest is undoubtedly a highlight, and I'm not asking for another 4 of those, but I would like some ultra difficult side quest bosses, along the lines of Ozma from Final Fantasy IX, or like how mad it was when you hopped off an elevator and through a hidden door on Dark Souls 3, and down a strange hole in a chapel you go and Medea comes charging at you from the darkness and uses Euphema as a toothpick. While we're on the subject of bosses, I'm sure that they are incredibly hard to make, but more duo or multi-enemy bosses would be welcome. Watcher Knights, Oro Mato and Mantis Lords are all exceptional examples of this, and I'd just love to see more. Like God Tamer, except good. In terms of things I would like less of or different, and this might be a controversial one, is charms. Now, I don't have a problem with the charms themselves. In fact, I really like how abilities and upgrades are tied to collectibles in this way. I love how some of them can be paired together for additional effects. My issue is the limiting factor of the notch system. There are a whopping 45 charms across Hallownest, and amongst them you have good ones, great ones, overpowered ones, quite a lot of average ones, and then a few completely useless ones. Again, not a problem in and of itself, a mix is what you want. But when you come to actually using them, for a huge percentage of your playthrough, you are very limited in how many you can equip. On the surface, the notch cost pricing structure and upgradable charm notch resource is a good way of balancing how much the player can use at any one time. However, due to the initial lack of resource, the player can only equip one strong charm at a time, not allowing for overcharming, which, let's be honest, how many players are using or even know about that casually. And even when you are at max charm notch capacity, you probably end up sticking to the same few powerful charms, rather than intentionally nerfing your output to try some of the lesser used combinations. What I would love from Silksong is a slightly more lenient system, one that allows for a variety of build styles without hindering the player too much. The Picto system from Clair Obscur is a great example of this in action. Or perhaps something like slots within other charms, similar to Diablo's socketing mechanic. You could put Fluke Nest on, and then Defender's Crest onto Fluke Nest, and then get the added effects without the additional cost. Or just make everything one cost. Basically, the charms and their effects are great. I just want more scope to use more of them. Another place where I feel options were reduced was in lockout choices. Granted, the fact that you could either save Zoe or just let him get eaten and not have to deal with him for the rest of the game is hilarious. But take the Grim Quest. Having multiple endings is cool and all, but when the choice is between completing the ritual and getting arguably the second best fight in the game, but the far inferior charm on one hand, and then the banishing, therefore lack of a boss fight, and far better charm on the other hand, is a tough pill to swallow, especially since it would take an entire second playthrough to experience the other choice. The endings, however, is where I am on board. Seeing one particular ending and then having the ability to go back and complete everything required for the alternate ending on the same playthrough is a very good thing. Special shout out to this tablet that unlocks World Sense to show you how much you missed right at the end of the game. I completely understand that some do enjoy having different playthroughs to accomplish different things, and these lockouts add built-in criteria for variety. But personally, I'm a sucker for a completion, and adding in either-ors definitely detracts from this. Am I being nitpicky? Absolutely, but do you know how hard it is to think of ways to improve Hollow Knight? It's no wonder it took them so long to make a sequel. Now, things to add. In Hollow Knight, we have a boss that breaks the floor of the arena, a boss that you can deflect boulders into, and a boss that you can escape early by breaking through a sidewall. Unfortunately, these bosses are the same boss, and the level of dynamic interaction with the surroundings is not really explored later in the game. We get one floor breaker later on and a few dropped pots, but nothing that really pushes these ideas in interesting ways. I would love for Silksong to give us more of this. From the trailer, it looks like we have some rising lava sections which look interesting. More of that sort of thing, both in and out of boss fights, would be awesome. Maybe like an Ori-esque chase sequence with the area's boss. Or, and this was something I mentioned in the area ranking video, go watch that if you haven't, is in waterways. When you flip the switch, it could drain or raise the water levels in different sections to reveal other paths or enemies. One of the best quality of life features they added in Elden Ring was statues of Marika. Being able to choose whether to go back to a Grace, the bench, or respawn instead super close to the boss arena was a godsend. And I don't need a similar mechanic as such. Just please, put benches outside of boss rooms. Before my last, and quite frankly most unreasonable ask, I'd love to know yours. Now, be civil in those there comments, I do read them, but please let me know what you want from the sequel. Now, one last humble request, and I know it's a pipe dream. Co-op. Would it be balanced? Absolutely not. Would it be difficult to implement? You bet your ass it would. Would it mean that players that otherwise would not be able to play the game would get to experience it in a much safer and more enjoyable context? Or allow interesting challenge runs? Or mean you could enjoy the game casually with a friend? As the kids these days would say, yeah. The seamless co-op mod for, you guessed it, Elden Ring, has extended my playtime to a quite frankly unreasonable extent. Having something like this in Silksong would be the shine on top of the cherry on top of the icing on the cake. So those are the things that I would love to see from Silksong. I do think either way though, we are in for a treat, based primarily on the fact that Chris Larkin is back! That does still leave some unanswered questions, however, like will Hornet be a silent protagonist like the Vessel? And without her to guide us through the story, who or what will be our signpost to progress? Will we have anything similar to the Grub Collectathon? Will there be multiple endings? And will an explanation or more context be given to the first game's events? When and where is it set? Is Hornet void? Quirrell's okay, right? Who is this poor sod that Hornet backhands in the trailer? Can we have Hornet in Smash? What will be Hornet's equivalent of a shade? If I die in a dream, do I die in real life? Who put the ram in the Ramalama Ding Dong? Who turned out the light? War? What is it good for? If a tree falls in a forest and no one hears it, does it make a sound? Who let the dogs out? Why does toast always land butter side down? How does a mirror know you're behind